Hello, everybody. And today we have an amazing guest, Julie Parker, the co-founder of Dental Business Mastery, and also another podcaster, Julie Parker Practice Success Podcast, with 156 episodes, Julie. That is just amazing. Congratulations on that.
Well, thank you for being my 156th episode.
Well, we won't tell them about that just yet, but yes, that's good. So, Julie, you are just an incredible person. Now, let's start off with something that is quite unique for you. You were the first non-dentist to own a dental practice.
Yeah. I
That's
didn't even know it at the time, but I love looking back over it with that moniker there.
that's pretty amazing. So yes, being a bit of a trendsetter, that's pretty good. Now, tell me about your dental business mastery. Where did that come from, and how did you get involved with that?
Well, the reason I got into dental in the first place was because I say early school leaver, but I was booted out of school because I wasn't turning up. And dentistry was one of the professions that you didn't need any qualifications to be able to get into. So I did fall into it and loved it the moment that I was in it. Started off as a dental receptionist, a dental assistant, went through all the various non-clinician roles within the practice. And then when I was 33, bought my own dental practice. I'd bought an ongoing concern. I was completely blessed with the person I was buying it from, the type of practice that it was, the team that was attracted to the practice too, the patients that were part of it. It was a wonderful 10-year journey of owning that practice. And when I sold the practice, I became a consultant because I didn't want to get back into that kind of employee in a dental practice situation. So I became a consultant. Of course, you think it's all dental. I know what I'm doing, but consultancy is very, very, very different from any other role in dental practices. I was a consultant for, I think, about 7 years. And then I was contacted by Amina Basile, who had just come into a similar journey to me, but had just come in as a dental practice management consultant. She said, let's work together, see how we can help each other out. And we just got along so beautifully. We were so aligned with what we saw was the path forward for dental practices to be successful. And then when COVID hit another few years later, and we were all booted out of our programs because all the practices were shut down, we then built the dental practice management course, which is an online course that goes for a year for dental practice owners and managers. And that went off gangbusters. And over the next couple of years, we just joined forces completely. So now we have Dental Business Mastery together. It's been around for about 7 years in total, in a more concentrated effort over the past 5 years. And we do everything together. And we're still getting along like a house on fire, which is great.
That is good, because you can't do things without a team. You need a team, and people try and do it without a team. And these days they're using AI agents as their team members, but you do need to have a team around you. Now, if we can step back a bit, you said you bought a practice. I'd love to go through the process that you went, if you can recall the going back that far. How did you buy a practice?
I was such a ridiculous novice and so naive about so many things. It was crazy. So when I decided, okay, I think I'd like to own my own practice, have control over all these things. We always have these conversations as employees that end up solving all the problems in the world. So if only we had the voice. And so when I started down the journey, I thought, well, I'll just start straight away and go to practice sales websites such as Dental Practice Sales, and I think at the time somebody else in the industry as well back all those years. And I got into the process, so therefore going out to the practice on site, having a look around at all the things. I think back to myself back then, it was just ridiculous. I didn't know what to look for. I didn't ask for profit and losses or anything like that. I just turned up to these practices, made sure it was all fully stocked, made sure that there were some patient cards, because back then it was before it was all computerized for most of these practices, made sure there was enough patient cards in place and all the things, and very, very naive. But the journey of life helps us to learn as we go. And this is part of the reason why I think I was a bit blessed with the practice that I purchased, because it was in a great suburb, in the suburb of Brighton here in Melbourne, so a nice affluent suburb. The owner was not a control freak. He wanted to let go. He wanted to let go to somebody who was excited by it. He'd had a practice manager that he had said himself, you should buy it. And she's like, no, practice managers don't buy practices. No. And so
Why
he was
not?
kind of open to the idea already, and then employed the magnificent Michelle, who was with me for the whole time that practice was in existence under my ownership. And we got along very well. Values and the way we thought patients should be treated, those thoughts aligned as well. So I know that there are a lot of ups and downs throughout the journey. I remember being very stressed at times and, going out to the back car park and going, screaming obscenities in my mind to the heavens. What's going on? What am I supposed to do? But to be honest with you, when I do reflect back over those years, I only have joy in my heart about it. It was such a beautiful learning journey. I was very open to the learning journey. I knew I didn't know a lot, and I was enjoying discovering the things I'm supposed to learn and then learning it. In a sense, I think that there was a bit of a benefit at the timing that it happened, because at the time I needed to learn about management, people skills, how to run a business, all these core things. And I would read books because the internet wasn't around. And I would go to a store in a local suburb that's where they had audio cassette tapes and CDs of these books. And I would get all of those things. Nowadays, with the internet, of course, you look up a leadership book nowadays, and how many titles will there be? Millions of titles and so it's hard to figure out the lessons and the authors that you should really be paying attention to. Back when I was researching, there was only about half a dozen books on leadership, and they were from superstars. And so I think that was one of the benefits that I had, that I was learning from true masters of what they knew and taking those lessons straight into my practice and putting them into place, and then evolving into my own management leadership style, business management style.
You're right. We do have so many opportunities these days compared to back then. Just yesterday, a colleague recommended an accounting book for me, which I can't say that anybody's ever done to me before, but anyway. So what did I do? I got on LinkedIn, looked up the two authors, sent them a connection request, and am now having a chat with the authors of this book. Because that's what you can do now. You can go directly to the source, the experts in a particular field. They're available now. It's extraordinary.
Yeah.
So what I got from your buying the practice, you were obviously quite ignorant as to how to go about doing it. You did the best you could, and it could have been done better in so many ways. And I bought a house just like that, by the way, my first house. I walked into it and I said, yes, I'll take it. How much is it?
Oh, that's the price. I'll pay for it.
Lesson number 2, don't do that. Now, there are better ways of buying these days. Now, you already mentioned it. You didn't look at profit and loss. You didn't look at a balance sheet.
Well, by the time I got to that practice, I was. But for the first few practices I looked at, I had to go on that learning journey of understanding what I was supposed to be looking for.
But why didn't you know that already?
Well, that's it, because I had never learned it before. I'd never come across a reason to learn it before. So it certainly sparked my learning journey.
How long do you think it took you before you actually learned it so that you could understand it? Not just, I know I should be doing this. What on earth is this? But how long before you actually understood it?
Well, it's interesting because now at this stage of my career, I have been involved in one way or another with a lot of dental practice assessments and sales. And so I knew enough to get through the first one, but compared to what I know now, wildly different. And given somebody in your level of experience, when it actually is your profession, I would know a small percentage of what you know. And so it really is one of those areas that unless you're going to throw yourself into it, there's always going to be a huge amount to learn.
And to become a dentist, because that's your clientele, it's not an easy thing. It's 5 years of intense study, 5 years intense study and research.
And then
Yet,
while you're on that point, my husband is a lawyer, and he said going through law school as a lawyer was pretty easy, pretty cruisy. We used to laugh at the dental students that had so many lectures that they had to turn up to.
Well, he must have gone to Melbourne University then,
He went
because
to a couple of, yeah, he went to a couple of.
because the dentistry and the legal departments there are pretty close by.
There you go. There you go.
So what I was saying there was there's so much study involved there. Yet to go and buy a business, you said you would have to throw yourself into it. They haven't got time to throw themselves into it because they're busy doing a job to bring in an income. They're busy being dentists. So it's going to take them quite a while to do that. The reason that I bring that up is my granddad had a saying. He was a shearer in Queensland and Australia. And he'd say, why have a dog and bark yourself?
It's awesome.
The reason I bring that up, and you wouldn't normally bring that up in reference to a dentist, I recognise that, but there are experts out there. I would not go and see someone other than a dentist to look in my mouth. When you're buying a business, you really need to go and see a professional. Now, we've already highlighted things have changed just from a technology perspective, but they haven't just changed from a technology perspective. They've also changed from a business perspective these days as well. There are different ways of doing business, different ways of owning businesses, of selling businesses, buying businesses. There's so many different things to learn. It has to be a challenge for the dental fraternity. And you said you've been involved with a lot of sales and purchases of. Are you able to give some insights in that respect, please?
I think the biggest insight is that there are two values I feel that are placed on a dental practice. The first value is, given its current standing today, what an accountant or a person specialised in the area of assessing the worth of a dental practice, what they determine the worth of the practice is. The other value is, and if you bought it, Craig, what would it then be? What would the potential for value be? Because by the time someone does come to the point of selling their practice, sometimes it could be because it's a bit of an urgent sale because of whatever reason people need to sell urgently. Sometimes it could be because the person's feeling burnt out and they're questioning their whole life choice and they're like, I don't think I want to do this anymore. And quite often it's not something like that. Well, I decided to sell at this age. And so 5 years ago, I started this process. And so I've got the practice at a position where it's ideal for purchase. Quite often that's not the case.
Oh, you're killing me.
Yeah, that's it. So when we look at a dental practice, quite often there's a huge amount of work that could be done. I shouldn't say a huge amount of work. There is work that could be done that would result in a huge increase to revenue for that practice. Whether it's making the appointment books more efficient, actually filling that fourth surgery that's used as a storeroom at the moment, getting additional services coming in. It's just been a general filling practice. Let's get other services in, do ortho, implants, all the things. There are a number of things that can be done by a new owner where their skill set actually lies, where that same business has a wildly different revenue picture just a couple of years down the track than what it is right now. And so one of the first pieces of advice that I do give, and I'm not a broker or anything like that. So I'm not an expert in the area. I've got more experience than many, but I'm certainly not an expert in the area. But I do encourage them, definitely get your accountant's advice, but don't take it 100% because their job is to look at the value as today. Yes. Your job is to improve on your investment and get a good return on investment. So your job is to recognize the gaps that you could fill to make the business worth more. And therefore, this is the potential worth. So you will likely be willing to spend a little bit more on that practice to be able to realize that investment.
Really good advice. With the accountant side of things, you're right. Accountants are good at giving you your status. They're good at doing your taxes and getting that right. But they are not the ones to be planning your structure, planning your exit. And your exit is important because you mentioned that a moment ago about death. So things happen within an environment, within life, that we don't expect, we don't want it to happen. Therefore, we stick our heads in the sand and we bury it. so that we don't have to think about it any longer. But that isn't what it's about. I too got kicked out of school twice.
Good.
And yes, I did. And I did fail year 11 because I didn't turn up to class. Who knew that you actually had to turn up to class to pass to get a
Well, it didn't
to
interest
year
me.
12? So well, anyway, here we are. So things happen that are unexpected. We need to plan for those, not tomorrow. We need to start planning for them today. And it's not just a single plan. You've got to have different plans in place. If we just take a dental practice, what happens if your receptionist doesn't turn up for work? What do? Well, you know what you do because you've got a procedure for that already. You call such and such and get them in for the day. You need to do the same thing in your business as well. And a lot of people, I literally had someone today say to me, we're not exiting for a few years, so call me back in a few years' time. My heart sags there because that's just, and I'm going to get back to them and have a bit of a chat because that's just not the right way to go. We take out insurance policies and we pay them, never expecting to use them and hoping never to use them.
Yeah.
But we didn't bury our head in the sand for that because it's an obligation. It's something that is a legal requirement for us to have and to carry out. Well, it's an obligation to actually have your business set up in a manner that you can exit as well under your terms.
I think that's the key. Under your terms, you have control over this. Don't just let it go to random universe to determine how things are going to be left if anything like that did happen.
Well, I personally would hate it if my wife was left with all of this and no way to move forward and everything would just collapse around it. That would just be the wrong way to go. But that is what happens with dental practices. That's exactly what happens with them because they're just not set up. So I'm quite passionate about getting people to think about their exits and work out what their terms are. Think about it. Okay, so you did it on your terms. You sold your practice. I'm sitting down, so I'm ready for your response on this, okay? How did that go? What did you do?
It went smoothly. I sold to one of the dentists that was my employee for a number of years.
Was that the best option?
Who knows? That was the one that I was considering at the time because I didn't know there were other options out there. Or I knew that there was the other option of taking it to market and things like that. And at the time, it was the best option because of my limited knowledge of the number of options. And I still may have chosen if I'd known the other options. But this is what you're talking about, isn't it? There are other options out there. So at the very least, educate yourself around them.
Correct. And you didn't say it out aloud, so I'll say it out loud. It's your choice. You might have still made that same choice. And that's okay because it's your choice. You decided to go that way. And that's terrific. But if you don't know the other ways of doing it, then is it the right choice for your clients? Is it the right choice for your staff that you've got there? And is it the right choice for you and your family as well? So that's why I asked that question, because you've literally bought and sold. Now, you bought another practice after that as well, didn't you?
No, that was the only one that I owned.
Right, okay. Because I was going to go through the same process and see what you changed there. Okay, so you are heavily involved with the industry. I have spoken with people and you are extremely well known within the Australian industry. What do you see as the problems with people buying and selling practices at the moment? The growth of them. Are they getting the growth in their practice that they're expecting? And later on, I'll ask the question that they deserve as well.
You know, it's such a people industry, isn't it? We're dealing with patients and it's our team members that deliver the services to the patients. And the minute you take your eye off that element of it and make it more about business processes, that's where you can start to lose sight a little bit. Business processes, systems, they all need to be put in place in order for you to be able to deliver a consistently great service and to stay in business for a long time. However, the practices that I see that are most successful are the ones that really hold the patient and the team members quite highly. It's never been as obvious to me as right now. I've got a client who, or we've got a client, Amin and I've got a client who has gone through a practice sale. And that practice has been in place for decades and decades, from one location to another. And the behaviour of the patients and the behaviour of the team members are coming from a space of such loyalty and value that I'm explaining myself to other clients and other people I come across in the profession, saying that it is still possible. I'm seeing it in live action right now. I'm seeing that there are patients. You can build a patient base that doesn't fail their appointment times, that doesn't turn up late for their appointment times, that pay their bills, that don't question the prices and ask for discounts. They don't want preferred provider. It doesn't even come up. This particular practice, even though it's in a very good area, I'm surprised at how few of them have extras cover for health insurance. On top of that, the team members will go far and beyond for the clinicians in that practice as well. Whereas nowadays we're hearing a lot about, oh, this younger generation don't know what it's like to work hard. They don't want to hang around for another half hour just to make sure the patient's seen properly. And it might be the case in their particular practice and in many of their colleagues' practices, and that's what they're talking about. That's what we're reading about on Facebook forums and all the things. But I've grown up in practices first getting into, I've been in the industry now for 37 or 38 years or something. They're the sort of practices that I have always worked in, the ones that whatever the patient needs, that's what gets done. We may have a full schedule and one of our patients got a toothache, they come in. We just make sure that they get seen rather than, oh, I don't really have time today and I do have a day off tomorrow, so they'll just need to wait till Wednesday. And the team members themselves as well, there was a deep level of connection and care for the individuals for each other as well. And maybe that's not always the case back then or in other practices that I'm seeing now as well. It is this practice that that's in my face at the moment is such a ray of hope, because people come to a consultant because things aren't working properly in their practice, or they see there's room for improvement. So I'm not getting all these calls from dental practice owners who say everything's working so beautifully and perfectly, we're thriving, just thought I'd let you know. And so you do become a little bit, this is just the way things are now. But it's been a beautiful reminder that no, these practices still exist. Do you know how much marketing this practice does? Oh. They pay, and I was just doing this equation recently, they pay a few $100s every month for SEO, and the owner has done that for many, many years. I did a report on the number of new patients that come through. For a start, the number of new patients that practice has coming through is anywhere between 2 and 5 new patients every month. Very, very low. 2 to 5 patients. Wild majority of them, like 93%, are all direct referrals from their own clients. And those 2, 3, 4, 5 patients, they're not coming for a toothache and you never see them again. They're coming and they're converting all their dental dollars over to this practice and they're loyal. It is an example of there is the opportunity to attract this kind of patient into your practice, build your patient base up. So there are a majority of this kind of practice, of this kind of patient, the type that really value their oral care. The type that really value being treated like a family member when they come into the practice. They feel valued, they can trust everybody, they know everybody there, because all the employees that have been working there for at least 10 years. They don't have a high staff turnover. It's a different experience. And so I am very much encouraging of practices that strive for that. That's sustainable. That's less stressful. That's fulfillment and joy and contribution. That is a lovely thing to recognize that it's not just possible, but probable if you do the right things. And you reap the benefits from that. And that kind of practice, where you go to sell that kind of practice, pretty picture that you're trying to put across to somebody else, potential buyers.
That sort of practice could also be scary for a buyer as well. Are they going to be able to reproduce that environment? A change of leadership could change that quite a lot. It would not be one that you would want to acquire and then start putting changes in place. You're from Melbourne, aren't you?
Yeah.
There's a restaurant in Camberwell called Sophia's, an Italian restaurant. They did a franchise model and they set up 7 franchises around Melbourne, and they all failed except for the original one in Camberwell, because they would not do what the original one told them to do. They wanted to make changes. They wanted to tweak it. Well, if it's working, leave it alone. If it's not working, go and see Julie Parker and the Dental Business Mastery, and they will work with you to sort it out. Now, the other thing that I noticed there, apart from you talking with your hands a lot, because that really inspires me, I do it all the time, is that you were talking about numbers there. 2 to 5% patients, or 2 to 5 patients a month coming across. 93% of those were referrals. Now, what you're talking about there is analysing a business, knowing their numbers as well. So not only are you talking about the personal side of things, the people side of things, but you haven't discounted the numbers and how important they are as well.
Otherwise, everything's guesswork, isn't it? I think we're going okay. I don't think we've got gaps in the system, but you do. And we've got this 1 year course that we've got for dental practice managers. One of the assignments is to track downtime and put a dollar value on that. We have to figure out the hourly rate of all the practitioners and therefore what that dollar value is on their downtime. And every student's like, that's crazy. Well, I can't believe it's that much money. So we do need to recognise which key performance indicators are crucial to look at, but then to be able to analyse it properly as well. Because you could look at downtime and go, oh, okay, we just got to get the receptionist on the phone more often and start filling that book with recalls and incomplete treatment. However, if the downtime is because the patients aren't having a great experience and they haven't developed any trust with the new practitioner, for example, or the new practitioner needs a bit more skill development in terms of engaging the patient in their oral health and what these services and how they can help them, then you can get the receptionist on the phone as much as you like. That downtime will always be there because you're not addressing the root cause behind it. So yeah, that's right. It's tracking the figures and then being able to assess them in a smart way.
It is. Now, I told you about my grandfather's saying. Now I'll tell you about mine, okay? Without reliable data, you are merely another person with an opinion.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So I won't tell you about a friend of mine's saying, which is similar. His was a little bit less crude, but the audience might appreciate it. Opinions are like armpits. Everybody's got at least 2 and they all stink. That was not mine. I'm not taking credit.
I have heard that one, but they didn't use armpit.
Okay. So there's numbers. I imagine that in your business mastery, you've got a set of numbers that you work from and you try and you use as a template for your practices to assess themselves on and then try to achieve better numbers in the future. Would that be right?
Well, certain things can be benchmarked, but not everything, because that depends on that, depends on that, depends on that. For example, if we're looking at cancellation rates, high cancellation rate, and we go into that dental practice and we find out that, well, it's not just that your confirmation process may be lacking, or it's not that you have to start, making your patients, emotionally pay for cancelling to guilt them into coming in. What's actually happening is all your marketing is based around bringing in transient type of patients. And so those that have got toothaches, we've got special, come to, we see emergencies on the day, or we've got half price checkups and cleans, and you're bringing people in who haven't developed a long-term relationship with that particular dental practice. So who cares if I cancel? I've got nothing to lose. And they may not have a higher level of commitment to their oral care, because I tend to see that those that do have that higher level of care about their oral health and come every 6 months, they also want to build a relationship with their dental practice, and they're not going to go to a half-price dental practice. They want to go to a great dental practice, and so they're likely to ask for a referral from somebody. And so we always say that with your unique practice, the way you market with your team members, with your unique team and the number of services that you have, figure out, first of all, where you're at, and then just improve from that. Don't worry about the fact that online they say you should have an 80% conversion rate from incomplete treatment into treatment, of people accepting their treatment plans, because it depends. Because a dentist who does high-end rehabilitation and cosmetic work, they will have a lower conversion rate, but they'll be making wildly more money than any other dentist. But they are delivering treatment plans to patients where they will naturally have a lower conversion rate because they don't know how much it's going to cost. They don't know what it means. So I'm here for the consultation. I need to find out all my information. Well, looks like I can't afford it after all. Didn't realize it was going to be that much. And so they're going to have a lower conversion rate. Does it mean it's a bad thing? No, it's just part and parcel of that particular type of service. And so it does come to a very unique space where we say, this is where you're starting off. So let's put systems in place. So you're just improving on where you currently are right now. And you're then on that constant and never-ending improvement journey.
I have to agree. Now, that also takes me back to your original buying of a practice and looking at the balance sheet and the profit and loss over multiple years, not just a single year. You need to be able to see, okay, the numbers are going up here, the numbers are going down there progressively over the years. That same strategy needs to be brought back into these numbers that you're now collecting as well. Good, you're starting today. This is where you're at. This is how you can improve. If you can, it's also good to go back and see where you were a year ago, where you were 2 years ago. May not be an option, but if it's possible, it's good to see. And then in the internet space, they use terminology such as A/B testing. So you make a change here, you don't make a change there, you send people into that one, send equal number into that one, and see what happens. You can also start to do that within your own business, not on the internet, but just within your own business, different practices, which ones are working better, which processes work better, so that you can see how you could make those numbers different. So yes, the numbers are very important.
Yeah. And I think having that constant curiosity, I wonder what's making us successful and I wonder what is holding us back. And always having that sense of curiosity. What the surveying of your ideal dental patients, don't survey all your patients, because don't survey the one that just came in for an emergency yesterday. They'll give you 5 stars and a big thumbs up because you got them out of pain. But if they ring back next week with another toothache and you can't fit them in, they'll give you 1 star and say, terrible place. So of your trusted patient base, select 20, 80, 100, 500, depending on how well you can do that in your dental software. Send out patient surveys. What do we do great? What do we do that's not so great that you don't totally love and enjoy? And what ideas do you have for us to improve? That can give you an enormous amount of insight, because what you said was correct. Otherwise, without the data, it's just another person with an opinion, because you say to the receptionist, how do the patients feel? They seem pretty happy, yeah. And she's telling the truth. From my perception, they seem pretty happy. But without the data, how do you know? And also surveying your team members as well. What are we doing that's great? What are we doing that's lacking? And what ideas do you have for improvement? Doing that on a yearly basis is also really powerful and impactful as well. And so it's recognizing that the people who deliver the service is going to result in the patient experience, which will result in our success or failure or stagnation. So let's make sure that the patients are enjoying what's happening, and let's make sure the team members are given the environment where they can be as successful as possible in the delivery of that service. And you should be on a bit of a winner, in my mind.
I think your approach is right there. With the team members, though, they're not accustomed to improvement. That isn't what they've been trained for and what they've been learning over the years. So what I tend to do is to ask them, okay, what tasks do you do on a daily basis?